of residents following death of a soldier there last week. The residents have been left traumatized.
At the moment, my mom is very traumatized. Her BP is out of the roof. She can't hold it. She can't hold it. To see her son beaten, and she can't come out to do anything about it. At the moment, she's sleeping and crying at the same time. Just had to gather courage to take my brother to the hospital. He was in pain. He couldn't walk. I have to carry him.
Some residents have sustained injuries after the armed soldiers invaded the area Tuesday dawn. We will be live in the area. Security analysts condemn the latest invasion of the area by soldiers. You want to stay with us? We have details of these and more. Thank you for joining us this afternoon from wherever you are. Let's head to Ashaiman because in the last few hours, a group of soldiers have been to the area allegedly brutalizing residents over the death of a soldier last week. Eyewitnesses say about 20 heavily armed soldiers stormed the area and camped residents in their homes, preventing them from stepping out. Amateur videos circulating on social media show uniformed men armed to the teeth, dragging and slapping some residents while barking out loud instructions. If you head on to 3news.com and, of course, 3FM's Facebook page, you find some of those videos uploaded right there. You see the uniformed men armed to the teeth, literally brutalizing the residents.
If you go there, they go woo you. If you the food, they go woo you. You see, oh, my back,
And some of the videos captured at least 2 armored vehicles, an armed forces bus and a helicopter. It is unclear whether the invasion was sanctioned by the military high command, but residents have been left terrified. Listen to some of them narrating to my colleague Mavis Asari exactly what happened in the early hours of today. We will be hearing from them. They've been sharing their ordeal with us.
It's done. I was in bed when my mom called me that my brother is beaten outside. So I quickly rushed out and then I didn't see my brother. So I moved my car to go and look for him. So apparently on the phone with my mom, she said the military guys came to the house, chased him to the house and beat him right in front of our door. My mom was inside. She couldn't come out because they asked her not to come out. So I quickly have to move out and look for my brother. Then I found him somewhere and I had to just take him to the hospital. So I asked him what happened. He says the military guys just beat him up. Apparently he's for morning shift, so he left home around 5 o'clock to catch up the bus to Gassem. He works at Gassem. So I had to rush him to the hospital. As I'm speaking to you now, he's in bed. He couldn't go to work. Quite unfortunate. Unfortunately, we expect that we are supposed to be protected, not to be beaten.
What reason are they giving for this?
We don't know. I've been in, I came home only on Saturday. I don't know what is happening in Ashaiman, but for military guys beating us, it's quite unfair to us.
So I was in my room sleeping around 4 a.m. and I heard people moving around somewhere. They were beating some people. And I started hearing a knock from the main door.
Yeah.
I don't even know how they managed to enter. So when they entered, they broke this door and came to my room, the bedroom. And they even left the catapult behind. They dragged me out and started beating me. They started asking me whether I know Moro. Like, I don't even know the guy. I've not seen the guy before. Even the day he was killed, like, I just heard the rumors around. I didn't even go there to see the guy.
A lot of people were going to work. I got out and I saw buses and vehicles parked outside, motorbikes just left abandoned and people were to their heels and all stuff like that. Just had to gather courage to take my brother to the hospital. He was in pain. He couldn't walk. I have to carry him.
Oh, then the ghost son of power said, me, I go 4 o'clock. No, my sorry, say me call private. And tell me for private name by. Then me bro, Baba, who me walk, finding no soldiers for Mupu, Nepal, and Utimijina. Let me Gina, answer you. What is coming on Mukomuji?
You heard that some of the residents there, terrified and traumatized, narrating exactly what they went through at the hands of the armed military men. If you head to our Facebook page, you could find some of the visuals from Ashaiman, a helicopter which was deployed by the military, and you find armed military vehicles. You find a bus also deployed to the area. We'll bring you the latest as we touch base with our man, Godwin Asideba, who is on the ground. But the invasion of the soldiers is linked to the death of a 22-year-old captain with the Ghana Armed Forces band in Sunyani, who was reportedly stabbed to death by unknown attackers Saturday dawn. The soldier, according to sources, was heading towards his residence at Zongo Laka in Ashaiman when he was attacked. The attackers are believed to have made away with some gadgets. Member of Parliament for Ashaiman Ernest Nogbe says the invasion by the soldiers and the brutality meted out to the residents are unwarranted. He spoke on Sunrise on 3FM.
There were armed men in uniform who came invading the whole community and brutalizing innocent people, civilians, and then residents of the community, preventing them from coming out. Some of them were prevented from going to work, who assured me that the men were going to leave the facility. But as we speak now, there's calm in the community. Just about 10 minutes ago, helicopter came around, putting fear and panic in the civilians. And then that is me. There's calm in the community as we speak now.
When you say everything is calm, what exactly do you mean?
I mean the armed men have since left the area. So a helicopter came hovering around the community that has also since left. And so if anybody is indoors now, still in that fear that they might be around, then that person should come out and go about his or her daily activities, because I speak with you now, the men are not here.
Is this a normal routine in your constituency?
For the past 5 years or so, I have not heard anything. Even robbery in Ashama community that is my constituency, has been a thing of the past. And so this is just an isolated case which happened on Saturday. And so it is not something that we are all happy with, that a young soldier could be killed. And it's not a robbery case because all the belongings of this young soldier were intact. And so we cannot attribute it to robbery. Whatever it might be, I'm sure the police authorities are making their investigation. But for the military men, for the armed men to invade the community, just to brutalize innocent people, innocent residents in the community, preventing them from going about their daily duty, is uncalled for, it's unlawful.
You heard the Member of Parliament for Ashaiman Ernest Nogbe. The Ghana Armed Forces is yet to respond to the matter. Many have suggested the soldiers could not have invaded the community the way they did, with armored vehicles, buses, and a helicopter, without the authority of a higher command. Let's cross over now to the area. Godwin Asidiba has been there all morning. Godwin, can you confirm whether or not the soldiers are still there?
So the soldiers currently have left the premises here at the Shaman, but the residents continue to live in fear because they are having the thought that the soldiers could come around again. A number of them, about 42, according to some eyewitnesses, have said that have been taken away to a certain military camp that we will be following up to know exactly where they have been taken to. When you walk around this particular vicinity, you can find that a number of rooms have been destroyed. The soldiers had to, penetrate into people's rooms, break doors, go as far as their bedrooms to drag them out, tell them to roll on the floor, and most of them were being lashed for crimes that they claim they haven't committed. But as I am speaking to you now, when we got here about 2 hours ago, most of their shops were closed. Ashama happens to be a very busy community when you get in here, but most of the shops were closed. But as of now, people are coming out bit by bit. You can see cars moving around, motorists and people, pedestrians also moving around. But as of now, it's just the fear in people that the soldiers might come back. But for now, calm has been restored.
Have you spotted the police or any of the security services there to attempt to calm the situation?
I haven't spotted any police personnel around, but I was told by some residents that when in the heat of the moment, when some police officers came around, some of the soldiers were attacking them and telling them to move away. So one of the eyewitnesses told me that a soldier actually slapped a police personnel and told him to walk away because he doesn't know the reason why they are here. It was also reported that some of the people who were told to roll on the floor were given water that was running from the drainage system for them to drink, just as a way of punishment, which I personally think wasn't fair. So when you come here, you can find some of the bottles around with some of the water still inside them, and you can clearly see most of the sticks that were used to hit these people as well.
Thank you, Godwin Asidiba, my colleague who has been in Ashaiman all morning monitoring the situation there. If you stay with us, we'll be bringing you the latest because he will remain in the community for the entire period and bring you all the fallout. But we will be engaging a security analyst in a short time because this is not the first time, obviously, that something like this is happening. My colleague Grace Hamuajiman has been looking into the recent incidents of military brutality and she's joining me in studio. Grace, paint for us a picture. What does the trend look like?
Yes, Komla, like you rightly said, it's an issue that did not start today. It goes back as we can remember. But from what I have now, let me take you back to 2021, then we come to 22, and then what happened this year. So in 2021, we recorded the Ejira uprising, where a joint military police force clashed with protesters, killing 2. And then still in 2021, in Wa, in July 2021, military personnel assaulted residents of Wa over alleged stolen phone, which belonged to a military personnel. The phone belonged to a military personnel. And then in Obuasi in 2022, July, a viral video showed military men asking alleged illegal miners to lie in muddy water at a mining site. They say it's part of efforts to stop illegal mining in the country. And then again in August 2022, Lower Manya Krobo, military deployed to help in ECG meter installation, brutalized some residents. And then this year, we're beginning this year, we are only in the 3rd month, and then military deployed personnel to assault residents after the alleged killing of a soldier.
My colleague who has been looking and chronicling the issues and instances of military brutality of civilians there. We'll be getting on the phone line to speak to a security analyst, Executive Director, Jatike Center for Human Security and Peace Building, Adib Sani, shortly. But let's hear from the MP for the Ashaiman area. He's been speaking about investigations being conducted into the circumstances under which the soldier was killed over the weekend. Listen.
I had a briefing from the police commander. We are really investigating it. After the time I spoke with the police commander, no arrest was made. Military came for the body of the deceased and understand they were able to recognize and know his unit. If it had been a robbery attack, we would have made some reasoning out of it. But unfortunately, all the belongings of this guy was intact, so we cannot equate it to robbery. And so they are still investigating what might have necessitated the killing of the young man.
So you heard the Ashaiman MP Ernest Nogbe speaking to us there, and as you would imagine, this has caused a lot of consternation because many residents in Nima and its environs have been outraged by this dawn's operation in the enclave. We know that it was a rainy morning all day. During that period, the soldiers invaded the community and brutalized many of the residents. And if you head to our social media platforms, you find some of those victims who have been speaking to us. Some are in hospital, others with whip marks on their back, others with bloodshot eyes and injuries to their head and other parts of their bodies. The military, I have to say, is yet to make any public comments on this, whether or not the action by the soldiers was sanctioned by a higher command or not. We'll be getting all of that for you as and when the information becomes available. But let's head to another story.
I think this is the time that it should be given. So if they are saying it's not there, then it means that this time is going to elapse. It's going to elapse that the child will not be catered for by way of the medicine or the vaccine. So I feel somehow bad.
Yeah, we're panicky. I said, "They do so. You know, na ebi ni hon. I no crown. I say, "Membra next month no. Hopefully na ebi aba."
It's a matter of life and death. We are trying to reduce that mortality rate. So they should try as much as possible to provide the vaccine so that it wouldn't create any problem for any child. It wouldn't create any problem for each child. So we are pleading. Like we always do, we plead. We are pleading. They should. It's their responsibility, but we must plead. So that's all I have to say.
So those are sounds of frustrated parents in parts of the country who continue to suffer because of what has become a childhood vaccine crisis in the country. The situation, which has persisted for many weeks, now has left more than 500 children in the northern parts of the country battling measles outbreak. Fears are heightening of a major health catastrophe owing to the shortage of these critical vaccines. We know the health minister, Kweku Agyeman-Manu, is already in parliament. He's expected to address the House on steps being taken by government to deal with the shortage of the childhood vaccines. But while we wait for him to address the House, let's hear from President of the Ghana Pediatric Society, Dr. Hilda Mantebia Boy, who has been highlighting the situation and what ought to be done to avert a full-blown crisis.
We've had mothers going from place to place, trying to get the vaccines for their children. We have had an outbreak of measles in the northern region. Currently, it's in the hundreds, probably like 500 or so now. There are definitely more in the communities who may not have even come to the hospital. It's worrying to us. We don't want to see this. And measles is a disease that for many, many years in this country, we have not been seeing it. So to suddenly start seeing them is a cause for alarm for us.
You heard the president of the Ghana Pediatric Society, Dr. Hilda Mantebia Boy. Let's head onto the phone lines and speak to my colleague Judith, our treat Tando, who has been checking with some health facilities in the capital. Judith, where have you been and what can you report?
Right, Komla. So I've been to the La Polyclinic as well as the other polyclinic here in Accra, and it seems that there's a shortage in vaccines for diseases like polio, for measles, as well as the yellow fever vaccine, which are currently short in most of these polyclinics. We've had nursing mothers tripping in and out of these hospitals, and they're being told to go and come the next month. Now, most of these nursing mothers have been coming for the past 2 months, and they're being told to wait for the third consecutive month. And so for 3 months, their children are without these vaccines. And so there have been a lot of fears in these women. They do not know what to do. They are scared that their children might be susceptible to these diseases if the vaccines are not provided soon enough. Well, the Ghana Health Service already claimed that they would be providing these vaccines in the next 2 weeks. We're yet to see the outcome of that. But I've been speaking to most of these nurse and mothers, and this is what they have to say.
We'll hear from them shortly, but then we'll be crossing over also to Eric Marina Egbeta in the Volta region and also Ibrahim Abubakar in Kumasi for the latest. But let's hear from the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association's General Secretary, Dr. David Tinkranchum, who has been speaking about the situation. He says the crisis will blow out if government does not take urgent steps to fix it.
This is an urgent need. It's not something that we can toy with. Okay, already we are seeing some of these emerging illnesses. As far as I'm concerned, we have about 10 vaccines in Ghana, which forms part of planned program immunization. It's only 3 that are in short supply, and the 7 are available. So government should just put in adequate measures to get us the vaccines. Don't forget that there is trafficking of assaults of foreigners from the Sahel regions to Boko and the rest of them. And over there, because of religious idiosyncrasy and stuff like that, immunization is not properly carried out. And such spillovers can contribute to the difficulty we find in ourselves. Now, that is why we need to get the vaccines, so that once we find you in Ghana, you get immunized. So if you don't get the vaccines, then the situation is going to be worsened.
You heard the General Secretary of the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association, Dr. David Tinkranchum. Let's take a flight to the Ashanti Regional Capital, Kumasi. Ibrahim Abubakar has been running some checks. Ibrahim, what did you find out? Hello, Ibrahim.
Hello, Komla.
What did you find out? If you can hear me, I'm asking what you found out from your rounds in the parts you visited this morning.
Well, Komla, this morning I visited 2 facilities, that's the Menchia District Hospital and Tsuntreso Government Hospital, to get the situation there. In fact, they also don't have some of the childhood vaccines in stock. For Tsuntreso, for instance, out of the 13, they have about 7 of them. And the ones they don't have in stock, which are also very important, vaccines for polio, measles, then one for tuberculosis, childhood tuberculosis, then another one for diarrhea. These 4 key ones, they don't have them in stock. In the morning when we got there, it was obvious the confusion and frustration on the faces of parents when they come there and they are told that these vaccines are not in stock, and for that matter, they wouldn't be able to vaccinate their children. But the nurses had to take time to explain to them to come back the following month, because for now, they can't tell when the vaccines will be in. Maybe tomorrow, today, maybe next week, maybe next month. But the education they were also giving them was that vaccines are being done to prevent future diseases. So the fact that the child has not been vaccinated today doesn't mean when he or she is vaccinated next month and there will be any issue to that. So at least that was the kind of education they are giving them to allay their fears, because some of the parents came there and they look frustrated and they don't know what to do. So currently, that is the situation here in the region. They have some in stock, but the polio, measles, especially these two ones, most of the facilities do not have them in stock.
Thank you. Clearly a very devastating situation there in parts of the country. Let's head to the northern region because that is where we understand there's a lot of consternation. Parents and individuals are up in arms with the system because their children are unable to get the vaccines. Already we know that at least 500 cases of measles has been reported in the northern region alone. And this afternoon, the figure is expected to rise. My colleague Christopher Mako has been visiting some areas. He reports that designated wards for measles patients at various hospitals and other facilities in the region are all occupied due to the outbreak of measles in that part of the country. Hundreds of parents whose children are due for vaccination are also left disappointed after visiting these facilities because there are simply no vaccines to inoculate these children. While we wait for Christopher to join us, let's hear from a nursing mother who has been sharing her frustrations with my colleague Judith Alchitando.
Since last month, that is February, when she was 3 months, I had all, but we didn't get the polio vaccine. So this month we were hoping to get it, but today is the same story. We still didn't get it today.
I'm knowing how important vaccines are for kids, and you not having the polio vaccine for 2 good months. How does that make you feel? Is there any fear of anything bad happening?
Yes. Because the vaccine is very important and we have to make sure our babies get all the vaccines and go in the right doses. But she hasn't gotten it for 2 months, so I don't know what might happen. She got some, yes, for the previous months, but we are hoping for the better.
You heard the one nursing mother speaking to Judith Alchitando. Let's head to the Volta Regional Capital, who Eric Marina Egbeta has also been running some checks. Eric, how different is the picture in the northern Volta Regional Capital from where we've been to in Kumasi and here in Accra?
Well, Komla, it's not any different, really. And as have my other colleagues in the different parts of the country have been reporting, there's a shortage, particularly for both measles and polio. I've interacted with about 3 parents already who came through seeking to get polio vaccines. A mother having a week-old baby, another who just delivered, and all of them have been told that there are no polio vaccines available. For measles, it isn't even different because inside sources tell us that when persons from the public health department of the Ghana Health Service walk in, the first question that they are asked is, have the vaccines arrived? And so even for medical professionals here, they are worried as to the unavailability of these vaccines, that anytime these health officials pop up, they're asking the questions whether or not the vaccines are available. And so here at the whole municipality, there's no measles, there's no polio vaccine. The others which are available are in very limited supply. But the picture here is just slightly better at the whole teaching hospital, where because of their autonomy of some sort, management have been able to procure to some level some of these vaccines, polio, measles, but it's in such small quantities that they ration it such that they can administer it to as many children as possible. Measles, for instance, when a vial is opened, it can be administered to up to 10 children, but it would last for up to 6 hours. So within 6 hours, when a vial is opened, they should administer it to 10 children. When that does not happen and they administer it to less than 10 in 6 hours, they cannot administer that vial, the remainder of what is in the vial, any longer. It will have to be disposed of. And so it formed the basis for which they are rationing. And so when you go to the whole teaching hospital, for instance, on Thursdays, you will get access to these critical vaccines like measles, which you cannot administer on a regular basis. And so that's the situation here. In fact, one of the parents which I interacted with is just leaving my side, and that's the situation. They've been asked to go. When they get vaccines, then they can be able to get access to them. Komla.
Thank you, Eric Marina Egbeta from Ho in the Volta region. We can now hear from Christopher Mako in the northern region, who reports there's been a situation there where many of the patients who have thronged the health facilities with measles are running out of space because of the sheer numbers in that part of the country. Christopher, how dire is the situation? Hello, Christopher. Christopher, if you can hear me, I'm asking how bad is the situation there. We know that at least 500...
Your voice is faint.
I'm asking how bad the situation is. Paint us a picture.
Yes, Komla, the situation is really bad and hitting hard on our parents here in the northern region because most of the parents who send their children to the various hospitals and health facilities for this vaccine are disappointed. They are left disappointed because they don't get access to the vaccine. They are told that they are yet to receive the vaccine, so they will have to go back. Most of them have to move from hospital to hospital, health facility to health facility in search of these vaccines. Now, the other issue has to do with the already existing cases, that is to say, the cases of measles recorded in the region and at some of these health facilities. You see them and they are in very terrible conditions. And interacting with the parents, all the parents told me was that they are just disappointed in the system because for the past months they have been visiting the health facilities to get access to the vaccines, but they don't get access. And
Christopher Marco in the northern region, thank you very much. And we know the health minister is expected to brief Parliament on all of the happenings on the vaccine shortage matter and steps government is taking to deal with the problem. Komla Kluche is our parliamentary affairs correspondent. Is joining us. Komla, do we have any indication at all when the minister will be addressing the House exactly?
Mameno was seen in the House a short while ago, quite prepared to answer the urgent question on the shortage of the vaccine. Last week, you recall, he was lambasted, heavily defended on by both sides of the House, especially members on the Health Committee, for his inability to appear before them, even though they had hauled him before us. But today, he's in the House. The minority was scheduled to have a press briefing before his appearance, but once it was the indication, they've had to put it on hold, waiting him to come give the responses. Then they can go ahead and then address the press on it. So yes, confirmed, the Mameno is in the House, but the House is yet, the sitting is yet to start. We understand the Speaker himself would want to be in the chair and moderate things, but there's another engagement that he has with others outside of the chamber, so he sees the back. Then shortly after that, he will come back into the House to be able to share the proceedings.
Thank you, Parliamentary Affairs correspondent Komla Kluche there. You want to stay with us because we'll be keeping our eyes and ears in Parliament to bring you all those developments, especially what government is doing to resolve the crisis in the vaccine sector here in the country. Business with Della Michelle is happening. Della, what's in the headlines?
For our headlines this afternoon, we know that there's quite a lot when it comes to the domestic debt exchange. There's been concerns, especially from commercial bankers, if that's going to interrupt with them. We are getting some of them saying that is not going to be the case. And also we do know that there are a lot of reports coming up with regard to the economy. Plus the president has assured that he's going to restore the economy in 22 months. We have some reactions coming up.
You want to stay with the team. Della Michelle has all the latest in business. I am Komla Adom. Thank you for joining us. Good afternoon.
Let's now bring you the latest in the world of business coming up this afternoon, as you heard before. But more news, Akai Energy gives up its 80% interest in Tunnel Block for free after government failed attempts to buy same for $700 million. A group of foreign investors and bank holding Ghana's bonds are seeking payment of insurance protection. We'll tell you more. Stay with us for the details. Thank you for your company this afternoon. My name is Della Michelle. Let's begin with offshore oil and gas operator Aker Energy, as it has relinquished its 80% interest in the South Deep Water Tunnel block. This was revealed in a statement signed by the Chief Executive Officer of the company, Per Jetli Sake, noting that the move was after a careful consideration of all options. This comes after a long and hard-fought battle with Ghanaian civil society organizations to protect the country's interest in the oil industry. 3 Business has more in the following report.
The latest decision by AGM to relinquish its 80% interest in the oil block will come as a huge relief to civil society organizations like ASAP and Imani, following months of agitation over what they described as an attempt to loot the state. In August 2021, some Ghanaian CSOs rallied on advocacy projects to prevent a composite transaction that will transfer acres' interest in the Pecan Field and the South Deep Water Tunnel block to the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation. The South Deep Water Tunnel block was valued at what they claim an outrageous amount of $700 million at 65% commercial risking, based on untested and unappraised Nyankom discovery, and what they also described as bizarre assumptions about contingent resources of about 421 million of barrels. The CSOs claimed their evidence pointed to collusion between some Ghanaian politicians and the GNPC to pervert standard practices in the industry on valuation and asset acquisition. But after 18 months, Aker Energy has written to relinquish its interest in the AGM block to Ghana for free. After several delays and inability to develop the Pecan Field, the Ministry of Energy is now demanding that Aker presents its plan of development for the Pecan Field by April 15. This is after 10 extensions have been granted to the company for various excuses.
And that was a report put together by 3 Business. Away from that, banking sector players are confident the recent domestic debt exchange program will not affect governments dealing with commercial banks in the future. Available statistics show that the banking industry will be one of the most affected in this exchange program and could ultimately influence the level of the exposure to government securities moving forward. But speaking in an exclusive interview with 3 Business, the managing director of Omni BSIC, Daniel Esiedu, said, despite the current difficulties, government remains one of the credible creditors to the financial sector.
Well, first of all, I think it's important we recognize the fact that this is not the first time it's happening in the world. It's happening in other parts of the world. It's happening in other jurisdictions. And to what extent did they affect how financial institutions deal with government? Government needs financial institutions also need government. I guess, of course, we'll be careful in terms of the kind of instrument we invest in. But we cannot rule out or we cannot conclude by saying that we won't deal with government, because really, then why do we exist? And so we exist to support the economy. And support the economy means that we are supporting government. And so if we say we are not lending to the private sector, and if we say we are also not lending to government, then what are we doing with the deposit we hold? Because we are paying, there's a cost attached to those deposits. Okay, so we don't have a choice. And whether we like it or not, government will still be attractive in terms of lending. I mean, lending to government that we think is risky is sometimes much better than lend to the private sector that is risky. At least government will still negotiate with you. Government will still talk to you. Government will still bring you a proposal. Most of the time, private sector, when they cannot pay, and you can't even find.
And you heard the managing director of Omni BSIC, Daniel Esiedu, there. Ghana insurance industry is expected to grow stronger following the domestic debt exchange program. This is according to the managing director of Glyco Group, Edward Che. We're speaking in an interview with 3 Business. He said it is based on negotiations between the Ghana Insurance Association and the Finance Ministry. He is hopeful the government's final decision is the best interest of the industry.
Government needs financial institutions also need government. I guess, of course, we'll be careful in terms of the kind of instrument you invest in. Or we cannot conclude by saying that we won't deal with government, because really, then why do we exist? And so we exist to support the economy. Support the economy means that we are supporting government. Even if rates are high, and we know that it is risky. If you don't invest in government bills and bonds, what outlets and avenues do you have? If we say we are not lending to the private sector, and if we say we are also not lending to government, then what are we doing in the deposit we hold? Because we are paying, there's a cost attached to those deposits. Okay, so we don't have a choice. And whether we like it or not, government will still be attractive in terms of lending. I mean, lending to government that we think is risky is sometimes much better than lend to the private sector that is risky. At least government will still negotiate with you. Government will still talk to you. Government will still bring you a proposal. Most of the time, private sector, when they cannot pay, and you can't even find them.
Let's still stay on this topic of insurance, as a group of foreign investors and banks holding Ghana's bonds are seeking payment of insurance protection on Ghana's bonds after the country missed some coupon payments. Bloomberg reported that a panel of investors and banks ruled that the development is a failure to pay event. This has since paved the way for affected bondholders to pursue the default insurance contracts covering the country's debt. There's more in the following report.
Asasi was sala west means ni monosun fudie ni bi wo hetimi gina brane emfa won ne se bedrum rebi na ensuo ntro ema wonu aba ne nua no enyini from enua bi.
We apologize for that sound. We bring you that particular sound in our subsequent broadcast. But let's listen to the Dean of the Business School at the University of Cape Coast, Professor John Gachi, who has been reacting to the development.
Asasi was sala west means ni mono.
Indeed, we apologize for those hiccups there. You're still listening to the business news this afternoon. In more news, high interest rates demand by investors forced government to reject bids for the sale of treasury bills last Friday. The 35% plus interest rate, which has been demanded by investors, mostly banks, was said to be too expensive for government. Government was seeking to raise in excess 2.7 billion cedis from the T-bills this week to refinance maturing bills worth 2.55 billion Ghana cedis, but described the yield as overly expensive. 3 business checks revealed government wanted to pay a yield of below 30%, one that did not meet the demands of the investors. 3 business reported last week that it cost government over 4 billion cedis in interest payments alone on treasury bills for the last 3 months of the year. A situation analysts have argued is unsustainable. And to our final story this afternoon, President Akufo-Addo has promised to restore the economy in 22 months to what it was prior to the COVID-19 pandemic and the Russia-Ukraine war. President Akufo-Addo said, though his government inherited an ailing economy, they turned things around and were able to be leading until the pandemic began. He, however, assured Ghanaians during the observation of Ghana's 66th independence celebration that he is determined to change things within the limited time in office.
I assumed office on 7 January 2017. I inherited a severely challenged economy whose rate of growth at the time was the lowest in over 2 decades. By dint of hard work, prudence, and creativity, we managed to turn things around, creating an economy which for the years 2017, 2018, and 2019, the years before the onset of COVID-19, was amongst the fastest growing economies not only in Africa, but also in the world, recording an annual GDP growth rate of 7%. We were the best place to do business in West Africa. And in 2021, we were described as the most attractive destination for investment in West Africa. The next 22 months of my mandate will be restoring the economy we had before COVID-19 and the Russian invasion of Ukraine to the period of rapid growth. It is a solemn pledge I'm making to you, my fellow Ghanaians, and one which I am determined to fulfill.
You heard the voice of President Akufo-Addo assuring Ghanaians to restore the economy to what it was before COVID-19 and the Russia-Ukraine war in the next 22 months. That's how we wrap up the business news right here on 3news.com. Log on to 3news.com for more business news. Black Rasta is standing by with Urban Blend. Please enjoy.